Hello there, welcome to the garden. It's Anna. So I just filmed a video about planting a late season harvest of squash. So hopefully you got a chance to see that. And now I think I'm gonna do a late season crop of zinnias and kind of pop them into the garden and see if we can't add a little bit of zinnia fun for the fall garden. So in some of these containers, there's a little bit of space, and I was just thinking, you know, if I put in a few zinnias now, it's right in the beginning of August, if I put in a few zinnias now, in about 30 days or so, maybe I will get flowers. I have found in the past that if you plant zinnias, I know I've said this a million times, but if you plant zinnias in the middle of summer, when it's super, super hot, they just germinate really quick, and then they take off, and then you get blooms. Like, I will probably have blooms mid-September if I get these in right now. So I am going to find a few spaces in some of my containers where I have a little bit of room, and I'm just gonna put in some zinnias and kind of see what happens. That's the plan. So let me turn this camera around and show you where I've got a couple holes that I think I can fit some zinnias. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of space. As you can see, a lot of these containers are pretty full. Look at this avocado. This is one plant. This was one little 4-inch pot. This whole thing. Unbelievable. Amazing shade crop. And look at the pest resistance on this plant. So, quick tangent. Look at that. Incredible. No holes for zinnias here. And of course, these perennial containers are just so full and beautiful. But moving over here, this is where I just planted the squash, and I've got this rose bush in a pot, and I thought, you know, there's a little bit of room next to this rose bush right here. There's a little bit of room next to, I've got a gomphrena in this pot. I could throw in just a couple zinnia seeds in these spaces. And then I also think maybe over here, this container, this was my cottage garden container. I really love it. Actually, I love, like, there's all this Gara in here, and there's Angelonia, but I might just stick like one zinnia seed in that space. There's not really room for it, but I always like to, you know, push the limits a little bit. And then I have this container that I have the 3 little plants of corn, which I just tied up to kind of help them get going, but I might put a couple zinnias around the front so that there'll be some flowers in there. This is one of my, like, you know, fall containers. We're gonna have the corn growing up, but it'd be nice to have some flowers in there too, you know, just for the fall garden. So that is my thought there. So I am gonna grab my zinnia seed. I'm gonna get a little sip of coffee too, because it is a early morning here. Get some coffee. We are gonna do 2 sort of fall colored seeds, because hopefully these zinnias will be blooming, yeah, mid-September. So we'll be getting into like that fall range, and I'm gonna be wanting all those red tones and fall tones. So one color is the Queen Lime Orange, which this has become one of my favorite zinnias this year. I have a bunch growing in that bed over there. Let me show you. These are so pretty, so pretty. Like a perfect, I mean, that's a great fall flower, right? Look at that. Stunning. I love it. So I want to have some more of those. There's another one. I mean, it's just so beautiful. It's so perfect. It's an orange flower, but it's got that like rusty kind of tone, you know, with the Queen Lime series. So it's kind of like rusty, kind of greeny. So that'll be perfect. So I'm gonna do a couple of these. I think I have, let me see how many seeds I have left, because I know I used a decent amount. Okay, so I have just like a couple seeds of that. So then I grabbed out some salmon zinnias. And these are another really pretty, like sort of on the apricot, a little more pinky, but not like a bubblegum pink by any means, you know, salmon colored pink. So I think between the 2 of them, it'll be just a really nice kind of, yeah, kind of the fall color tones. And then I can add in blues and blacks and purples and different things in my violas that I've got started, or if I go to the garden center and get some more violas, we're just gonna fill the garden with violas, and that'll all be a mix. Zinnias are not cold hardy, so they will die with the frost. So I am trying to get them in the garden now, so that when the frost comes, you know, and takes them out, I'll at least have had a little bit of time with them blooming. But they do just grow so quickly and flower so quickly that you know, I should have at least maybe a few weeks with them blooming. It's hard this time of year when you start thinking about, especially starting things from seed, because there is such a limited growing season left. You know, we are getting toward the end. It's like, you know, we're not going to have months of these zinnias blooming by any means. It's going to be just for a couple weeks. So you just have to decide like if that's worth it or not. But in these areas with these containers, so like the rose container, the corn container right here, I don't really have anything else that I would plant in there. I mean, I guess with the rose container, I could underplant it with violas or a winter plant. Maybe I will once we get into winter. But like with the corn, I wouldn't want to plant anything in there with it, like an actual plant, but I can start seeds in there. Zinnias do not have a huge root system, so they are not going to choke out the corn. They're not going to cause too big of an issue. So zinnias and lettuce are two things that I like to throw into containers because I know they're not going to create these massive root systems. They're not going to take over everything. Zinnias kind of just like grow up, and they'll grow up and around whatever's in there, and they'll just grow up. They'll just grow in and find a spot and find a room to grow and not cause like issues for the other plants. They're pretty good growing companions. I can show you a couple of my zinnias that I've stuck into little corners and how they're doing, and you'll see how they just kind of like find their way. So okay, now I have to decide. We'll do the salmon with corn, and I think I'll do the queen lime orange with the rose, and then we'll see if there's anywhere else that I can pop in some seeds. A little ill-advised, but we're doing it anyways. I'm just gonna do like four or five seeds in here. I don't want to do too many. All right, so just a few seeds, just to add a little bit of fun, something to keep an eye on for the summer. I do need to maybe go get some slug bait. I didn't put down slug bait with the lettuce that I planted in the corner of that raised bed back there, and I just noticed today that all of the seedlings are gone, and I saw a happy little snail crawling around. So it was just a reminder to me that this time of year, something like slug bait is really necessary. So I am going to go to the store and pick that up probably today or tomorrow, just to have it, and then I'll put it down, because really for me in this garden, I can't plant anything if I don't have slug bait, which kind of is a bummer. So I will get that to help those seedlings, because the pest pressure is real this time of year. The nice thing about the lettuce is so that even though that lettuce over there accidentally swept up some lettuce seeds that I had spilled, and I threw them in this container, and they've all started sprouting. So I may transplant those over to that raised bed and then put down some slug bait, and that would be kind of fun. Here are a couple zinnias that I threw in with a rose plant. So this is my lavender crush rose that's in a container here, and I put in a couple zinnia seeds, and as you can see, they just kind of grew over to the side, and I could tie them up to help them a little bit, but they have just kind of grown over and started blooming. I maybe will rotate. Let me rotate this container actually. There we go. I just rotated the container so that the zinnias are going toward the sun a little bit more, because zinnias are a full sun flower, but it's really cool. They just kind of grow out of this container with the rose, and they're happy. They're pretty healthy, honestly, not too much pest pressure, and just kind of fun. And then I got a couple zinnias over here that have also grown up just alongside. I threw in a couple seeds next to the pumpkin on the stick, which look, they're starting to turn pumpkin-y. So now I need to go research how to dry the pumpkin on the stick. But yeah, there's a zinnia and another zinnia that just kind of grew up in there, and that has worked out really well. So they are a super fun plant that you can just toss in. Sometimes if they don't get as much room, like this one, you'll see the flowers don't get quite as big if they're crowded out. But if you don't mind that, you can toss them in just about anywhere. And they also grow in like raised beds really well next to other things. They're a great companion plant. So that's what I have going on here. I've got eggplants I've got peppers, and then I have a bunch of zinnias in the middle, and they're just super happy. As you can see, you've got the queen lime orange and the queen lime red and some apricot, and they're all just growing in and amongst these vegetables. And the peppers are producing like crazy, the eggplants are producing like crazy, and the zinnias are super happy, and it's all growing really well in this raised bed. And there's actually a tomato in here, there's some basil, and a lantana. This bed is pretty wild. It's 2x4 raised bed, and there's so much growing in there, but it really hasn't hurt the production of anything. So the more I practice this, the better and better I'm getting at being able to actually maximize a bed like this. But yeah, all of it is growing really well. The pepper's actually producing really well. These are the mystery peppers that maybe are the jalapenos, but maybe not. Oh, pest got into this one, so I'll take that off. Maybe are, maybe not, I'm not quite sure, but I thought I would let some of them ripen to maybe like a red and just see what happens as far as flavor. They're getting really big. I don't think this is a jalapeno. I think it's something else. I think I mixed up the seeds. Although the plants are small. I mean, these are like definitely container style plants. These are definitely dwarf pepper plants. And even though they're dwarf pepper plants, they supposedly were designed for containers, just like the eggplants. Those are definitely a dwarf eggplant. They are much smaller than a normal eggplant. It's really nice because this raised bed is in the front of my garden, and so they aren't so huge. I can still see my other raised beds behind. And that was why I did pick the container style varieties for this bed, so that I would still be able to see the other things that I have going on over them. But yeah, just a good example of growing zinnias in and amongst other plants and how well it works. And they're kind of fun because, as you can see, they just sort of like weave their way through and find a spot, find their own path, and are super happy. I just will always forever be an advocate for zinnias. I just love zinnias. I think they're so beautiful. They're some of my favorite flowers, and for me have always been some of the easier ones to grow, which is also another reason why I like them so much. So anyways, let me know if you are planting any zinnias in the fall, or if you have like a favorite zinnia from this year. I'm always kind of collecting zinnias because the other fun thing about them is there's so many varieties to try, so you kind of never get bored because you can have a whole different look, whether you want the antique tones of the queen lime, or you want like canary yellow with a bright yellow, or a bubblegum pink. You can have purple, you can have red, you can have any color that you want. Big zinnias, small zinnias, they come in all varieties. It's really, really fun. Okay, I'm gonna go inside and finish my coffee. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.